That's better. Now we actually have the right stuff. So let's do some painting here. In fact, what I might do, because we are doing the thing, let's just automatically do a little zoom in there. All right, so here's what we are going to be working on tonight. We're going to be painting this Mini. This is a little Rogue Mini that I 3D printed a couple days ago, and I want to get him in a nice, probably a, I don't know, probably some sort of black or dark gray base clothing, and then like a dark brown leather for other bits and pieces. Not quite sure on all the details. Maybe a dark gray, so I think a dark gray base coat, and then I'll play around from there. I think it'll be fun, and we'll see what we end up with. So we'll grab our dark brown, and we'll grab a fairly large brush here. So, you know, large relative to the Mini, because we're gonna more or less just slap this on. And I'll grab a glove so I don't get paint all over my hands. And we'll just start painting that Mini. Get that. No, I said I wanted gray. Duh. So let's make it gray. I actually have a slate here, a gray, and I think we'll just use that again as our base. Typically, I like to change every color, but I might just do that this time. Let me grab some gray. I'm going to darken that gray up a little bit by just pulling some out. That should be enough, I expect. Nice blob there. And then I'll grab my black. I'm going to actually move in. I wonder what some dark brown in with that black would look like. Certainly have plenty of dark brown. Let's just mix that in, see what happens. Yeah, not loving that. Certainly not the color I'm looking for. Okay, so let's grab some black. Gotta be careful with the black, because that's gonna overwhelm. Oh, this is a new thing of black. New container. Have any? No, I ran out of the old black. Okay, and we'll just put that over here. Like that. Pull out some of that, relatively small amount. Even that might be a bit much. Okay, yeah, we're getting a darker, definitely a darker color here, which I'm liking. Okay, oops, smearing some of that black in again. Okay, there we are. Can live with that, and that's going to go on as our base coat on the figurine. So let's get that going. Again, just slathering this on as a starter color, not really worrying about getting it everywhere, or about not getting it anywhere. That's totally fine, and that'll need to dry anyway. So we'll just let that do its thing, and we'll come back a little later when it's had a chance to dry. If I'm really careful, I will also come back, and anywhere I get paint on the base, I'll come back with some black paint and just dab on to make a more uniform sort of situation there, but that might be a bit of overkill. There's actually a figurine for a game I'm going to be in tomorrow. Be playing some D&D. Don't normally get a chance to play, but a friend of mine is in a game and invited me to play. That's exciting. I've actually played with him once before last week. Or once before, last week. So Should be fun and interesting. Let's see here. Get that on there. Definitely want a different color for the face, so I'm not trying to get this brown on the face or this dark gray. All right, so that's that. So now I have this gray color. Oh, let me just show you. So here's our figurine covered in that thing. It's still very shiny. It's going to become unshiny soon enough. It's really hard doing this backwards. To get an idea there of the figurine. I'm literally upside down and backwards on this. So yeah, so we'll get some more interesting on there once I get a chance to. So I have some other minis here, which I wouldn't mind doing some stuff with. Here's a cool creature. I forget what it's called. Is it a Naga? Don't think so. It's some sort of demonic creature, which I kind of have here. And then I got some orcs. Gotta love some orcs, classic orcs. And I also have some zombies on the other side that I just want to do their spears with. And actually this gray would not be bad for spears. Spears are often sort of a grayish brown. So I think I'll do that. I'll just grab all these zombies. Also, wouldn't mind giving them a quick wash, like a black wash, which I might do. But before that, let's just go ahead and paint their spears. Then I'll look up the general color scheme for one of these and do something with it. But in the meantime, actually, I'm not going to use this brush on this because it's very, very large. So I'm going to grab this brush, which is much smaller. And I'm going to go ahead and grab some of this color and just dab it on to that spear. Now, skeletons are pretty white, so I want to try to keep this off of the rest of the skeleton and just get it on the spear, ideally. And with the small brush, that becomes feasible. I'll also grab some metallic, like a steel color, and use that on the tips. Might actually grab a few different colors for these, for the spears. It's nice to be able to differentiate your bad guys. Although for zombies or skeletons, now that I'm thinking about it, it might just be better to number them. So now that I have a chance, now that I'm playing around with them, I might just go ahead and just write with a Sharpie on the base, numbers like 1 through whatever. Always useful to have some skeletons around. Okay, so there we go. So there's the spear on the first one. That's fine. That's a perfectly reasonable color. I'm quite content with that. Got a bunch of these. We'll just keep on doing this. Hey, Matt. Good to see you. So let's just go ahead and go in here, get these spears done. I tell you, it is incredibly useful to have these small brushes. They make all the difference in the world when doing these minis, which, makes sense. But I didn't realize quite as much while doing this. This guy's arms are actually kind of broken. I can feel it as I am painting this. I can feel the arms move as I'm pushing the paint on there. But that actually gives him an interesting stance. His arms are a little lower than the others, which makes it a little different, which is nice. All right, how you doing, Matt? Matt, rather. How was your Thanksgiving? If you celebrated such things, forget where you are. World-wise. So hard to keep track of who's who and where's where. tip as well. There. Get around the back of the mini, or the back of the spear. There we are. Get in all those little spots. Oh, got a bit on his hand. That's a shame. I can't really go back in. Just too close. Yeah. Oh well. There's a little bit of black on his hand. Okay, we're gonna keep on doing this. Just move a few things out of the way so I can rest my hand. And this guy, his you can see his spearhead's a little busted. It's pointing down a bit. That was just because of how this thing came off the printer and how I had to wrest some of the support materials off of the mini. It bent as I was trying to clean it up, basically, which is always a bit of a shame, but it's just what you have to deal with when you've got a desktop 3D printer. Certainly can't complain. It's awesome I'm able to just do this stuff. It's awesome this stuff exists. All right. And a bit more here. So I've done 4 of them with this color. So I have a couple of options here. I could change this color a bit, or at least try to. It's already very dark, so it's unlikely I'll get many more shades out of it. And I could go for different colors for different shafts, but I think I'm just going to go ahead and do them all the same color, and then, like I said, number them. I don't think it matters that much. I don't think it's going to be all that interesting to have different skeletons with different colored spears. Like, that's not going to be too much of a differentiator on the table. I don't think folks will notice. Maybe they would. But I'd rather just, now that I have the color, get it all done. I'll try to bend that back as well. There. It's a little better. So try to get the color on, and then, like I said, I think numbering them will just be much more convenient, more effective. Oh, there's a little, I don't know if you can see, there's one little hair, one little bristle on the brush that's coming off one side. Watching Soul Eater. Cool. That anime is an animator's anime. There's the amount of mind-boggling animated sequences in that. Kind of boggles the mind. Worth watching just for that stuff. Alright, get up the rest of that haft. And again, I'm kind of just waiting. Ooh, I missed a spot on the rogue. Let me go come back and get that. Funny what you don't notice when you think you've got every little spot painted. Double check now. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, this guy, he his arm broke quite badly, so I ended up gluing his hand to his leg there. I don't know why that's not quite focused in. So as you can see, his hand is glued to his leg. There we are. Which is just ridiculous. But it keeps the mini... Oh, and I broke it again. Dang it. Well, that's a problem. I have to reglue that at some point. I could just do an armless skeleton. I think I will. I'm just going to do that. That's kind of cool. Away with you. And this one, the spear broke off, so he's just rocking a staff, basically. Poor guy. Or gal, maybe. Who knows? And I need to fix that staff. A little bent. There we go. That does make him a little a little distinctive compared to the other ones. Maybe the spearhead rusted off over the centuries that this skeleton has been patrolling this tomb. And this is all he's left with. Poor thing. But maybe he's gotten really skilled with it. As skilled as a skeleton ever gets with anything. Maybe he's the Bruce Lee of skeleton staff bearers. The other thing, when I'm making these mistakes, and getting a little bit of black on the hands now and again, I could always come back in with a very fine brush. So like right there, I don't know if you can see on his hand, you really can't. There's just a little bit of black on the hand. So I could always come back in with a little bit of white and dot that out if I really wanted to. Not a huge deal. Oh, here's another one with just a staff. Oh, and there's a little bit of plastic hanging off him, but that's going to have to stay. Yeah, it's really, let's see if you can see that bit of plastic right here, right coming off of his arm. It just stuck on when I was printing it, and it kind of refuses to figure itself out, refuses to come off. It's so weird that it can't focus on that. There we go. Do you see that little bit of plastic right? Ah, of course. A little bit of plastic on the other arm, this arm, there we go, over here. That little bit there on his arm. That's what I'm looking at. I just can't get off. So pretend it's a little bit of, I don't know, dungeon dressing. Yeah, well, I've also just gotten used to it over time. But yeah, we'll pretend it's another bit of bone that just got fused to him for somehow. I don't know. Maybe it's part of some enemy that he fought in life that got fused onto him. Yeah, one of the only reasons, in fact, I said one of the only reasons. One of the primary reasons that I'm able to have this much control is with this really small brush. Otherwise, there would be paint everywhere, believe me. I have copious evidence of that in other endeavors. Okay. A little more on the back. It is nice to get everywhere that you can see. You know, that might not seem useful, but at the table, folks are going to be all around the table looking at these during a game. So they're going to see this from the back, they're going to see it from the sides, just in regular play. You know, this isn't just a display piece. So it is worth getting in that extra detail and seeing it from multiple angles. So how are we doing? It's still definitely not dried. So we'll have to do a bit more with some of the other guys here. Was hoping to do a bunch more reading over the weekend, but just didn't get to as much as I'd hoped, as is so often the case. It's funny, I wish I were reading more than anything else. You know, I wish it was my standard, my default to read instead of watching movies or whatever. But for some reason, I always manage to get in video content before books and such. It's just how I am. Then I guess that gives me more stuff to review for you all, which is not the worst thing in the world. All right, 2 more. That's fine. Again, we might be able to use some of this paint for this other weird snake creature. A Merilith. I think that's what that creature is. The name just popped into my head. Funny how that is, how the brain works. Where just all of a sudden it will tell you, that is the name. That is the thing you've been trying to remember for the past 15 minutes. It is now available. It's like, why wasn't it available 15 minutes ago? Talk about random access memory. Okay. That's good. Oop, gotta get it back. In there. I've actually just been playing more of Pokemon Let's Go Eevee, which is a very fun and relaxing way of spending some time. My first Pokemon game. Definitely an appropriate first Pokemon game. Not challenging at all. And thus a really good introduction to the weirdness of the world and the specifics of just how everything works there. So I'm not stressing out about losing all the time. They definitely would have lost multiple times if the game weren't this easy. So it is perfect for me. This goes here, that goes there. And a bit on the end of this, or actually on the front of it. And like I said, I'll come back with a silvery medium for the spear tips. But that's pretty good. All right, Merilith. Used to be a book we'll remember the name. Yeah, exactly. So it's really a shame. I mean, come on. Why am I not reading all this stuff? Merilith. Is that it? Yep, that's it. Okay. So, obviously green skin. And then green snake body. And then metal mostly for the armor. And then like brown underneath. And more or less a normal, well, I say normal skin tone. Actually fairly Caucasian skin tone. Now that I'm looking at it. So nothing here really that we can use that well on that. Fair enough. What I might do then is grab some green and mix it with that. I think that will be of use. So let me grab my green. Obviously you don't technically need green. You can always just mix blue and yellow, but I find it's hard to get a good color that way. And I think for this, because that's fairly big, I'm going to mix this in a jar. Well, I don't really need to. Oh wait, there's one more. I missed one. I missed a skeleton. Let me go ahead and do him. Just sitting over here to the side, minding his own business, trying to avoid his fate. But I'm having none of that. Sneaky skeleton. Which is odd, because skeletons usually aren't very sneaky. They are fairly obvious enemies. But this one is different. Perhaps it was a thief in life, and some strange magics have kept those skills with it, even in this strange unlife that it lives. There's a neat RPG where you actually play skeletons, animated skeletons that are trying to fend off various adventurers who are coming into your tomb, your dungeon. There we go. And you basically, when you defeat them, then you go to sleep for like 100 years and then wake back up for the next set of adventures, which is pretty cool. All right, so we will get some of the gray off there. Like I said, we'll grab some green and then mix in some of that gray. And I'll just get, I think I'll need a fair amount. We'll get a bit more than that. Yeah, it seems like plenty. And then I think, yeah, because we'll need a lot of it, I'll use this brush. Got a little dried out, but I think it's usable. Yeah. And we'll just grab some of this gray and mix it into the green. Need to be fairly aggressive here. Yeah, that's going to be good. Nice dark green, like a medium green. I try in general to not use any one color straight out of the jar. I try to mix everything because rarely is any one color true to nature. And if you just throw on a slight tint, it tends to look a lot more realistic, for lack of a better term. I mean, we are talking about snake people here, but you do want some verisimilitude. So Matt, what were some of your favorite books? What were some of those books that really connected with you back when you were a bookworm? You know, for me, science fiction and fantasy were big. Actually, sci-fi more than fantasy, interestingly enough. I think I'm going to make this green come all the way up her abdomen. Definitely have too much green, or more green than I need, rather. So I might end up using some of this green as accents on the rogue figure. Nothing wrong with that. Or it may just end up essentially going in the trash. That would not be the first time. Yeah, I'll definitely want to come back in here and clean out some of this green on the base. It's a little embarrassing. Get all the way in there. There we go. Both sides. Again, I can afford to be messy here because I'll be coming back in and painting over whatever I'm doing right now. So if I brush onto, you know, something on the sides, I'll be painting that anyway. So it doesn't need to be exact by any stretch. Try to get any of these overhangs painted as well. Also just realized I'm very close to getting some of that paint right in my sleeve. Alright, so there's that green for the base of the Marilith. That I can live with. Looks pretty nice. And like we said, we want like a dark brown underneath, and then metal for the breastplate and the other stuff. But then she has a Caucasian-ish, skin tone. So what I might do is grab like a white and a yellow and mix it in a little green. Give her kind of a greenish tint. Hello, Azula. A lot of crime novels. Interesting. That's cool. So let's see if we can get something closer to a skin tone here. How are we doing on him? He's still pretty wet. Actually, I'm probably going to take off. Let me just... Oh, no, it's actually... It's fairly dried. Yeah, I'm not getting any black off of that. So let me move to the next glove. And so I think... Yeah, we want some brown. Underneath, where does it show brown? Yeah, just as a very base color. I mean, most of it's going to be metal. I could probably get away with metal everywhere. Ooh, I should probably, no. Yeah, I think I'll do that. So I'm not going to do a brown undercoat. Sorry, not going to do a brown undercoat. Just going to do metal all around. So let me do that. Let me grab a or make a skin tone, and I might also use that for his skin tone. That's what I'll do. I will do. Actually, let me grab brown instead of yellow. I'm just gonna lighten up brown and see what I get. Start there. All right, let's move some of these guys out of the way so they can get dried. So I'm gonna grab a little bit of brown. Oh, there we are. Maybe a bit more. Yeah, that should do it. And then we'll grab some white, as Bob Ross would call it. We need a lot more than that because, well, let's start here. Darker colors tend to overwhelm lighter colors. How's that for a skin tone? That's a little darker than I'm looking for a skin tone. But I have some extra white on here, which hopefully will, no, it's not gonna help enough. So we'll grab a bit more white. Mix that in. Not looking for a Caucasian, just looking for something a little middle of the road. That's a little whiter actually than I was hoping for. A little lighter. Kind of putty-ish. Perhaps if I add some yellow, that will help. I don't know. I'm just playing around here. I don't know what I'm doing. But I feel like a little yellow in here. Not that much yellow. Might give us something we can work with. What does that end up with? That's interesting. Yeah. I can live with that as a skin tone. Cool. I'm going to cap up some of these colors so we don't have open tubs of paint that can then get knocked off and go everywhere. I want to see if I can make use of that green for something. Oh, the orcs, of course. I have some extra orc figurines. I will give them good green orc skin. All right. Good. But first, I'm gonna reuse this small brush because it had some dark on it, but I'm okay with that. And I'm going to grab that and use it for the arms of my Merilith. And just try to get that more or less on all of the arms. Oops, sorry. Hard to remember exactly where the camera is. So yeah, just trying to get this color on all of these exposed skin surfaces. Gotta make sure I also get the hands. That's gonna be important. And I'll come back in a bit and do the, whoops, got a bit on the hair. What's the hair color on a Merilith? Gonna be interesting. In fact, I think, well, no. We'll try to do each arm fully. Arm on the left, and then let's do the hands on that side as well. Ooh, that arm is almost broken. So it's probably going to come off as I paint it. And if so, that's what super glue is for. I can fix that, but it's just something to be aware of for myself. Okay. Gotta get the rest of that. Yeah, this is a nice sort of middle of the road skin tone, I think. Not quite Caucasian. You know, would probably pass pretty well for maybe Chinese or Japanese as a general skin tone, or Indian maybe. Dunno. Okay. I like to keep my skin tones for fantasy just a wide variety. So people aren't all Caucasian or any particular, real world ethnicity. And that's just the color of your skin. And some people are darker and some people are lighter. And so I try to make sure I paint my minis so there's not a preponderance of one skin tone or another. Did Tolkien coin the word orc? It was part of medieval lore. It was a word that existed, but it was not used for a specific fantasy race, right? It was basically a word for monster, for certain kinds of monsters, that he pulled out of some myth or some fairy tale. So it had existed, but in a very obscure way, as just one of the words out there used. And he kind of systematized it. So kind of like, goblin or fairy was the word orc before him. And I think it was it might have been like a Norse word. So not even something that was something that you'd encountered a lot in like English or British myths. Myths from the Isles, so to speak. This arm actually did break off and I had to paint it or glue it back on. This is actually good because I can cover some of my sins. No one will ever know. Good question. These will be for D&D eventually. Probably for my home campaign, because the PCs will very soon be, if all goes well, delving into hell to rescue an artifact and fight off Demogorgon, as all good adventurers do at some point. There we go. Okay, I think I've got the arms painted. Now to do the head. And I'll form the head. I'm just going to go in here and get the face and the neck. And I'm just going to try to get a fair amount of the head. I'm going to go a little bit overboard with what I normally paint, just so I'm sure there that I've covered all of it. Because with a custom face color, I really can't come back in and fix it. It'd be really difficult to match this color. Now, granted, on the other hand, if I don't and I come back and I end up with a different color, then you can just pretend the face is splotchy, or you can, there are a few things you can do to fix that. So I'm not too worried. Let's go back and see the hair color on this creature. Black. Well, actually, blackish green. That's kind of cool. I doubt I'll be able to get that color. Obviously, I have a dark and I have a green, but it's really hard to make a color that is basically a dark green. It ends up looking just like very dark, a very dark color instead of green. I do not run any online games right now. I will hopefully be starting up a new game in the new year with some friends online on the Discord for Geek Archaeology. Once the holidays end, we're hoping to get that game started. It'll be a more realistic medieval D&D game. All right, now I'm going to come back to my mini, my Rogue Mini, and I'm going to use this paint on its face. Now, I have a fairly large brush for that, so I'm actually going to go and grab my really, 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 really thin brush. Actually push some of these off to the side so that I can grab some of that paint and get right up in there and hopefully not get any of that paint anywhere else on the mini. So I'm just coming in there and getting brown all up in that face hole. Try to get underneath there as well. I believe, yeah, the chin is a thing. It's not covered by a cowl or anything. So I want to see if I can get that covered with the flesh-colored paint. There's a phrase I didn't think I'd be saying today. There's barely any detail on this face, just because of the nature of this 3D printing medium. But I've now got a little bit of detail on the face. You know, it's just enough to indicate there's a face there. There we are. That's fine. Might even come back. Yeah, there's a little bit of. I painted over the side. I want to come back in and get a little bit right here. Nope. 1 second. I'm shaking. I tend to do a lot. Fingers just shake uncontrollably. There we are. We need to get a little bit on one side because it had brushed over. But now we have a much nicer little mini there. If it will ever focus in. No, it won't. See, that's in focus. And that's just never in focus. There we are. Nope, it's just going to bounce in and out forever. Okay. There's a little bit. Still see a little bit of that on the edge. But I think it's in, well, yeah, let me see if I can't just brush. Because I'm always worried that I'm going to go overboard here. But I think, there. Okay, good. So I don't know if you can see that. That's a little more on the side. Yeah, barely noticeable. But, okay. Like I said, now you can see that he actually has a face. So next, I'm actually just going to grab some of the brown, because he has a little bag thing, I think. I see. No, I'm not sure. No, I'm not really seeing it. So I see a little like bandolier on the front of him and a little belt. So yeah, I'm going to grab just some dark brown, happen to have here, and brush that on his bandolier. Just to give it some detail. And the same thing on, I don't know if you'll even be able to see his belt, but it does exist. So I'm just gonna get some brown on there. Just brushing very carefully. There we go. And that belt comes down here on his side. So I'm going to, that's a bit much on the brush. Do a bit more around there so you can see that bandolier coming around. Okay, and then he has these epaulettes. I'm going to use this brush for the epaulettes, a rather larger one, which I should probably clean off here in a bit. Thanks, Solid Commentary. Yeah, it was that was a fun time. So I have this steel-colored paint, sort of a metallic-esque paint. And I'm going to go ahead and clean these brushes. I'm actually going to clean both. I'll probably clean all three. So I'll be back in about 3 minutes while I clean these. 1 second. two things. I realized as I left that English is a funny thing. Perhaps I'm just a funny thing, because I said, I'll be back in about 3 minutes, 1 second. And the other is, in case you're wondering, how I wash my brushes. It's just hot water and soap. So I rinse them under hot water, add some soap, do that basically with it. Repeat if the paint isn't all out, and just do that until the brushes are clean. Very straightforward. Okay. So, like I said, I'm going to now brush with a very small brush, and I'm actually wondering, yeah, there's a little, I think it's fine. So this is a dark metallic paint. I'm going to go ahead and brush that onto some of these armor bits, like on his shoulders, like his shoulder pads. Just to give it that sense of him being armored. I don't want it to be really obvious. I have much brighter metallic paints, but he's a rogue, so I like the idea that he's pretty hard to see. He's made sure that his stuff is not incredibly shiny. He's probably done stuff to it to make it less visible at night, less visible in general. So again, and I know this is really hard to see because of the colors. Very dark colors on dark colors. But I think he has a little arm thing too. Yeah, we'll just put some metallic paint on his arm things, whatever those actually are. And again, this is really more for feel. Just so folks seeing the mini just see a little glint of this metallic-esque color. And so they're like, oh yeah, he is wearing some kind of armor, but he's still going to be hard to track at night. I can even come back and do some of these bits on like the boots. Yeah, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pull off. I'm going to grab this brush. I'm going to pull off some of that dark brown, put it down here, some fairly large globs of it. There we go. And I'm going to mix in some of this dark gray to give myself a unique color. It's sort of brownish, but also kind of gray. And I'm going to see if I can't use that. His boots have like buckles on them. And I want to get in there and just put in a few little hints of that brown in here. So you can see those straps that he's using to keep his boots up. In fact, I might even paint his entire, his entire boots are gonna be this color too. That's a nice accent, that he has these brown boots, but a more dark gray outfit. I like that. Boots are rarely made of a wide variety of colors. So it's much more likely that you'll only be able to find, standard brown boots, just darkened. Okay, so there's that. We'll do same thing on the other boot. So give it that extra sense of being different. Yeah. That's gonna just add a little level of detail that folks will notice. Okay, and then I'm gonna use that brown on these straps. Again, like I said, just to get across that idea that he's using leather straps to hold up something there. those straps exist. They're not just knobs on the figure. But there's a method to the madness, and there's actually a spot that I missed with the gray. I'm going to right now go in there and fill that in. Good. Okay. So, here is our updated figure. Hello, Game Escape. Good to see you. And as you can see, what do you know? It's actually focusing. So as you can see, with the extra color on the boots and the slight shininess on the armor, it's just, you get a little bit more of a sense of the character, right? He feels a little bit more real than just being a bunch of dark gray on a figurine. So that I'm happy with. I think that is my figurine for tomorrow night. So move that off to the side. Now we have all this green here, so let's go ahead and take care of our orcs before we forget, because they should all have their orcishness. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my somewhat larger brush and use that to slather green on these orcs. I generally have green-skinned orcs, though I think they normally, yeah, they have pants, so I should not be painting their legs. Don't need to be green. Whoopsie. So I'll just kind of brush that off. Let me go ahead and give them green torsos and heads. And again, I'm slathering green everywhere here. That's fine. I'll be coming back in and cleaning that up. No part of this will be white. So I can afford to be very, very messy with my colors here. But yeah, all is well. Thank you. Thank you, Game Escape. Not consuming nearly as much media as I would like, but that's always the complaint, right? Never can get to all the things. Sometimes I envy folks from hundreds of years ago, where there was a defined and clear, set of classics and things where everyone had read the same 100 things. It was a lot easier to stay caught up on all this stuff. I wouldn't actually, go back to those days, but it is interesting to think about how much easier it was to stay up to date on things when there were fewer things. Okay, so I think that's a good amount of, a little bit more in here on this shoulder. There we go. So yeah, so there's the green on the orc. And we'll do one more. Try to make sure you can actually see this here. Cool. And just get green all over the place. There's another advantage of having custom colors for everything, is that these orcs will have a different skin tone, slightly different green, than the other orcs. So they will be a little easier to pick out at the table. Probably. Unless I'm really, really way too consistent with my colors. And I managed to get the exact same color twice by accident. Which, that happens sometimes. You just mix up two colors and they happen to look exactly the same. Because we are creatures of habit, and so often, while we think we are doing something completely fresh, we're actually following the same pattern we followed last time. Okay, there. So, like I said, just trying to make sure I'm getting green all the places where there would be green. I can come back in and fix any mistakes. My phone is buzzing. Gotta make sure it isn't somebody about the D&D game tomorrow. So yeah, I think that's green everywhere. Cool. So that orc is now has skin. them off to the side. Oh, that's right. We also have the skeletons. Nope. Is Amazon telling me of a deal and that I might be interested in something to buy? I very much doubt it, but let's just see what they suggest. Oh, 3D printing toolkit. Nope. I already have all the tools I need for 3D printing. So I'm faced with this interesting question. I want to add some metallic paint, like I said, to the end of my skeleton spears. But this is a dark metallic color, so it's not going to show up very well. I also have a pewter color. I have a sterling silver, so it's a little shinier. I'm going to go with pewter for them because I want it to be more distinctive. I want it to show up a little bit more, but I don't want it to be bright, you know? So have I used this? I don't think I've used this brush yet in this set. So I'm going to use this brush, which is the same one I think we used for the main hilts. So let's go ahead and do that now. And then we'll come back. We still need to do, oh yeah, we need to do the Marilith. And I think the Marilith is also going to have pewter for her main armor. And then we'll probably use something brighter for her swords. I kind of like that idea. But let's go ahead and do our spearheads. Yeah, that's nice. Oops. She's poking me. So we get both sides with that color. That metal. Yeah, and you can see how that really just finishes out that spear. It really makes it feel a little more significant. It was much darker, which we might actually try. But if it was much darker, it would just seem just be harder to pick out, harder to notice that they have these metal tipped spears. I want a little contrast on those. Okay. And maybe for you, you want a variety, you want different stuff. That's cool too. Nothing wrong with that. Just not how I roll. Okay. One other advantage of doing these this way is that it takes no time at all. Just a few brush strokes and you're done. There we are. Very happy with this. Like I said, I wouldn't mind doing a wash with these minis, meaning I take some paint and thin it out with water and then brush that into the minis, and it goes into the crevices and just makes the details stand out more, which I think might be very helpful on skeletons in particular. So I might do that tonight. That might be my final thing for tonight, is just trying out washes on the skeletons. Our current campaign, the big campaign, is actually building up to a climax, which should come in the next couple of months. So I'm looking forward to that. And then we'll probably be going back to first level, which means I will need things like skeletons. Not that I won't need skeletons. These might show up in the Journey to Hell, but actually while I'm here, I think the orcs' axes are also going to be this color. I'm going to go ahead and just throw that onto their axes while I'm here. One nice thing about this sort of thing is that because the axes are kind of held out of the way, you can paint the axes and it's fairly unlikely that you'll bump up against them when you're painting other parts of the mini. So that's convenient. I already have a bunch of orc minis actually, but you know, orcs come in handy a lot in tabletop gaming. So it's not a bad idea to have some spares. Have a lot of orcs. Okay, so there's that metal. Should I do their spiky epaulettes as well? Yeah. is that dry? Yeah, dry enough. You know, dry enough that it's not going to mix with the metal. Oh, it is a little bit. Okay, never mind. Oopsie. I can come back. We'll do the other ones. He's actually a little lower quality print, intentionally. Like I tried a lower quality setting on the Mini, and it's not quite enough to be horrible, but it's enough to where you can notice the lack of detail. So I'm actually, you know, I'm fine with that for a spare Mini. It was a good experiment to see what my limitations were in terms of detail. So we'll just get this metal here, and then we'll go back to our Marilith. Marilith. Get in there. Get all the surfaces covered. There we are. Need a bit more paint. Get the inside surfaces. Okay. You might be able to see if I get this nice and close how the... Is that going to want to focus? Sometimes if I put something real up close, nah, you can't tell. But there we are. Yes, you can kind of see the print lines on the axe. There we are, bouncing it up. Yeah, you can see on the axe how clearly those lines are, which is just a little bit too silly for a good Mini, right? That just doesn't make sense to have those very clear curves on the axe, and that's just the lower detail of that. So that's the kind of thing I would want to avoid. All right, so we're back to our Marilith, and I'm going to go ahead and paint all of her armor with this same color. Now, this does imply that she's wearing more or less a suit of plate armor, which is probably a little unrealistic. She'd have like leather underneath, so I'd want some leather details. But I'm not interested in being that detailed with this Mini, right? Because I would need lines that are like 1/10 of a micron thick, or not 1/10 of a micron, 1/10 of a millimeter thick, which is a little silly. So I'm just going to go ahead and make it all metal, and people will be able to imagine all this stuff underneath, right? I'm just not that skilled to get all of that detail covered. I try to go to the sides of this armor. There we are. And go around the other side. Get this other sort of hip plate here. It's probably a very specific medieval technical term for these like hip plate things here. But I'm going to call them hip plates, because that's what they look like to me. Need a bit more paint on there so I can get those edges. There we go. Make that really shine. Okay. We'll do her shoulder pads. The same kind of thing. Oh, we want to do her hair too. That's what that green is still there for. We're going to see if we can manage that. We can get like a black-green hair. That's pretty crazy. But we might be able to do it. Just might work. Okay. One plus of printing this in gray is that if we don't get every single little molecule of this covered in the metal, it just looks like it's a slightly non-glistening metal, right? So it kind of serves as our base. And I'm going to do this metal on her back as well, which we could probably do like as a brown. You know, that would be her leather backing. but I'm just going to pretend she has a breastplate on in the back, basically. Very well armored lady. These little horns are interesting to me. Just look at the artwork. Oh, those aren't horns. Those are like parts of her outfit. Interesting. I don't like that idea, so I'm probably just going to give her like horns. I can live with that. Oh, she also has stuff on her. She also has these armbands. So let's silver up the armbands, or metal up the armbands. That's going to look really cool with metal on those. Like I said, another advantage of painting this in, or printing this in gray, is it kind of hides our mistakes on the metal at least, not on the other parts of the Mini. But for this part of it at least, it's a boon. Try to get all of those armbands covered in the paint. Okay, it's coming out pretty nice. Would certainly be a creature you would not want to face alone without some backup, some staunch allies at your side. She does get 6 attacks per round. I mean, look at her. She would. I believe she's basically a demon. Or possibly a devil. I think she's a devil. Those being two very different things in D&D, by the way. But she is a fiend, and thus bad news for many, many people in many, many circumstances. Okay. That's cool. I'm just seeing a few places where I did not get all the skin done. So I'm going to grab this brush and go back into my skin color, which is not quite dried out yet, and try to get those bits painted up properly. Yeah. And I think I brushed a little extra metal on here so I can just push some, extra hand stuff in there. Good, okay. That's all I need to do, just cover up some stuff. Hey Angela, this is for my regular D&D game, which I play every other week in Meat Space with other people, like physically. I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to paint the hilts of the swords in this metallic color, and I'm going to come back and paint the blades in a shinier color, just to give it an extra little bit of bling. So yeah, the party will be entering hell soon, for reasons, as so many D&D groups do, and this will be one of the things they face, alongside other nasties, probably including these skeletons, actually. Skeletons are very appropriate for hell, as kind of minions that have been raised and wander around. Very low powered, but they can be handy for certain creatures at certain times. Okay, good. So we've got that. I'm just going to brush that off. Actually, can I? Yeah, I'm just going to get all that off. If there's a little bit of contamination, I'm okay with that. And I'm going to take the pewter, put that away. Have I used Yep, I'm fine with all of that metal. So I'm going to grab this sterling silver. Nice shiny color, which I normally don't use for weapons because I think it's a little silly to have really bright weapons. But for a very powerful creature of hell, something like this that's really remarkable, I kind of like the idea that she keeps her stuff shiny. And this actually isn't even as shiny as I thought it would be. I was expecting something brighter than this. Perhaps that's because it's on gray. That makes sense. If I were painting this on white, it would probably be white. It would probably be shinier. But with that gray underneath, it's not being quite as visible, but that's okay. I'm not horrified by that. It's not great, but they'll still be shiny. Okay. Yeah, it's interesting. Huh. It's actually getting a little shinier as it dries. So this might be one of those things where I just need to wait a little bit, and it'll look better once it's kind of found its place. Once it's figured itself out. And unfortunately, there is some plastic that I couldn't quite clean off of the blades, as I'm sure you can see. They're kind of would help if I could actually hold this steady. There we are. Yeah, the bits of plastic that are kind of stuck on there that just came off of the printing process. That's all right. Again, it's one of those things where I wish I could fix, but I can't, and I can live with it. Life is not perfect. Only God is perfect, as they say in Hindu philosophy. So nothing on earth will ever be perfect. In fact, in Hindu temples, there are often intentional mistakes. There are things that are intentionally off kilter. As a reminder, nothing is perfect. Only God is perfect. It's an interesting design philosophy. Okay. So there are shiny blades. That's pretty terrifying, I will admit. They're coming at you. So now, we need the hair. I'm going to reuse this thing because I'm not going to put it back in the pots. I'm going to mix the black and the green and try to get a hair color I'm happy with. And those are pretty dried by now, I'm betting. But I'm just going to mix those up, see what I get. Definitely need more black. I might even end up grabbing more of the black. But I'm actually getting an interesting color out of this. This I could do something with this. I could use this. Yeah, that's a nice color actually. I think we got it. All right. So we have, you can't really see it. There we go. So here's this very dark green, and I think if I use that as her hair color, yeah, that's gonna look, it's gonna look like there's a dark hair color, but if you look at it closely, you'll notice it's green. That's pretty cool. And then I think I'll just make her horns straight up black. I have decided she's going to have black horns. Come in here. Get all around in. This is where having these small brushes really pays off. Because you can get in all of those places without going over. And then I need down the back of the hair. over in here. There we are. There's the back of her hair. Yeah, that's a really nice color. I'm very happy with that. All right, so there's her hair. It's a pretty noticeably green color, but not like garishly so. That's nice. And so I'm gonna grab, I might just grab that dark. Do I have enough of this that I can actually use? Is there any of this that I can pick up? Yeah, there's a little bit of that dark gray that I'm gonna use for her horns. Instead of grabbing the black, I think that'll be an interesting enough color to dab in there. Just dab a bit. Not that kind of a dabbing. Okay. Yeah. Cool. Make sure I get all of her horns. Yeah, get a little underneath there. Cool. All right. That is our Merilith. Again, it's not going to want to focus right, but there we go. Pretty happy with that. Good amount of detail, good amount of stuff. Finished the world building series yet? Almost. I still have like 1 or 2 things left to do on that, and I keep forgetting to. Thanks for reminding me. I need to go back and do just a couple of more bits and pieces on that. Just a few more topics to cover, and I will do that. Oh, I forgot his spearhead. Do I have? Well, actually, like what I was saying, I'm going to grab some bronze, and I'm going to grab a rather large brush because it shouldn't matter. I'm going to give him a bronze spearhead to make him special. Very easy for this large brush to give us problems, but there, he has a bronze spearhead. That's fine. He's special. Alrighty. We got our minis done. Now we can go back and take care of our other guys. Give them, while I'm at it, where's my, yeah. I'm going to real quick, we're not going to finish up these orcs, but I'm going to give them some color. I'm going to go, oh, I forgot to clean that off. Shoot, oh well. I'm going to paint the orcs' boots and gloves a dark brown, just so they have that. I find that gives them some definition. And then I'll just come back later and throw on some color for the rest of them. You know, give them color on their cloaks and so forth and so on. But I'm right here, and I've got a bunch of stuff out, so I might as well throw one more color onto them. I like doing the bottom of the feet, not because you'll see that, but because that tends to then cover any edges on the bottom of the feet. If you don't do the bottom, then there's often a little bit around the edges of the bottom of the feet that you don't notice, that aren't colored. So if you go all the way around, everywhere, then it's all done. And it looks good, which is kind of the point. Kind of want this stuff to look good. Okay, that's that. And then we will do the gloves, which I might not be able to do very effectively with this, but we'll see. Yep. Already seeing some spots where I did not get all the green in, which is actually good. This would be a good time for me to come back in and this is a little messy. This is very messy. Okay, I can grab either side of that so I can get that glove. Yeah, here's where having a big old brush is not helping me. I'm just going to go in and slap some brown everywhere. Yeah. All right, that's okay. I will come back with a nicer brush. Whoops. And get the rest of that. Oh, I've used up all of the green. Dang it. So this might be these guys might be difficult to recover from, but you know I might end up coming back in with a very different with a new color for their bodies and touching things up with that. But that's okay. Again, I'm going for volume on the orcs here. I want to have a bunch of orcs, so I'm not as horrified if I end up with one or two with less than beautiful paint jobs. And because I'm using a standard brown color here, again, I know I can come back and touch up and add in more brown. I don't need to get every single spot done here. Okay, so there's the gloves. Let me get in there as well. Yep. Ah. And then I'll kind of flip it around and do the boots. Try not to be too. Got a lot of paint on this brush. And I should. Oops! And I got some on the. Yeah. I should not have used as big of a brush on this. I was too greedy with the brush, if you will. So this is becoming a bit of a mess, but like I said, not the end of the world. I can always come back in and fix things. I would rather have a bunch of mediocrely painted minis that I can then come back in and fix than trying to get every single one perfect immediately. Because if they're wrong, I can see that and fix them. But if I'm constantly fiddling with one mini over and over and over. Thank you, Game Escape. I might do that. Hey, Tandem. Good drawing. Yeah, I would not mind turning that into like a little ebook or something for of world building for writers and such. It's a good idea. Which is all done. And there are other topics to cover. They're just not really critical. But I might do that at some point. All right, so there are the orcs. I always forget where the camera is relative to where I'm looking at, because there's a large chunk of this that is just blocked by the camera thing. So there are those orcs just with some brown on them to give us something to go at there. And like I said, I'll come back in and add some other colors for other parts of them. Here are our skeletons. Oh, I said I might do a wash on these. Maybe I'll do that real quick. Yeah, I'll do that here in a minute. Here's our Merilith, all metalled up. Pretty scary. And then here's our rogue figurine. Turned out pretty well. Again, trying to do this upside down and backwards is a bit of a challenge. There we are. So the detail on the mini is not great, but it's certainly enough for a tabletop game. It just refuses to focus in on that. There we are. And you can see how adding just a little bit of color here and there just really makes the mini pop. So let's do a wash as a final experiment tonight. Yeah, and you're not going to be good to start out with, so don't try to be, if you will. That sounds bad. What I mean is, because your first couple aren't going to look like the kinds of minis people have been painting the kinds of minis made by people who've been painting for years and years and years, understand where you're starting from, and then paint things to your level of ability, and be content with that, and then or be content with that in the moment, right? And then come back and say, okay, let me learn more and do better next time, and figure out how to go from there. Do the best you can right now, then you can come back and learn more and do better next time. But don't worry about being amazing right out of the gate. All right, so I'm going to do a wash on these guys. I can use a fairly large brush, but I don't want a huge one. In fact, I don't want a small one for a wash. I'm probably going to use this guy. It's a good size. So let me wash this, and I'm going to wash all of my brushes and add a bit of water to this. So I'll be back in a few minutes. All right, so what we got here is a failure to communicate. No. We got some brushes that I just cleaned up, and like I said, I want something that's sort of medium size, so I'm going to go with the purple brush. The rest will go back in my little container there. And I have a little bowl with some water in it. And I'm going to grab some black and put it in that bowl. Grab one of these. Can't be Picasso the first time you've ever tried painting? I know, craziness. Okay, I'm going to take this black. I'm going to take more black than that. I'm going to drip this in here, and I'm going to stir this. This is actually probably too thin. But we're going to start here and see what happens. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to brush this onto these minis. Gosh. Oh, that's why I'm all zoomed in. I always forget that. So I'm going to brush this on those minis. And then I'm going to wait a few moments and then daub it off with paper towels. And so what should happen is that a bunch of it will stick into the cracks, and the rest of it will come off. At least that's the idea. Now, I have to remind myself, because I'm still not, not exactly a perfectionist. I still am a perfectionist sometimes. If I completely screw this up, worst comes to worst, I can always just slap more white paint on this and put it right back to where it is right now. Or even worse, throw it and print a new one. Right? These are all 3D printed, that's fine. So I can afford to experiment here, and even if I screw things up, it is all recoverable. So So let me actually pull off paper towel. So I'm kind of ready to go here. I've done this a few times and I've had mixed results, partly because I'm just not very good at it. So I'm going to grab some of this, push it on there. Try not to get it absolutely everywhere. So there it is. Again, it looks terrible, but watch. Now what I do is I grab this and I sort of push it in. I don't want it to look like a guy wearing a striped shirt. But now, if I daub that onto it a lot, you end up with that. And there's just a little extra, there's some blackness here and there. There's a little bit of detail. And I'm actually not displeased with that. It just makes it look a little bit more like a creature. So we're going to continue that. I'm going to try to add a bit more detail here and there. I'm going to see what techniques you can use. And one of the problems is, it's very wet, so it's easy for it to drip onto things. And I don't want it to drip. Okay. And you need a few moments to wait for it to kind of sink in here and there. And you try to get in. And you're going to get some of it off, a bunch of it off actually. But you should end up with something that looks more, I don't know, more detailed. Kind of like that. Yeah, I'm glad I did that. Let's see if we can get a little closer. It seems to be having some problems with the lighting. Like it's just, there's not enough light on it, so it's not willing to focus on it. But you get the idea. Okay. Yeah, glad I'm doing this. So, and I'm finding it helps to lay it flat. That way the stuff doesn't drip everywhere, doesn't drip down the figurine too much. Yeah, I wouldn't want to leave it like this because it looks very spotty. But with some extra daubed away, pulled away by the paper towel, yeah, that's pretty cool. You just get that extra detail. Cool. And so, good example here. Let's compare. So as you can see, just with that extra little paint, it just feels a little more lived in. It feels a little bit more like a skeleton, right? Cool. So he goes off to the side. I've often made this too thick, so it ends up making it basically gray, which is not really what I was looking for. Or I made it too thin, and so it would just all daub off. There'd just be nothing left. It's also a little embarrassing. So, and I'm going to move this orc out of the way so we don't accidentally drop some of that on him. I've also learned not to paint it on and immediately try to daub it off. Made that mistake, and then there was just nothing to daub off. Or, no, I'm sorry, and then all of it daubed off, rather. And so it just went all the way back to white, or whatever the base color was. So you got to be a little more careful there. Ooh, this is the one with the broken arms. So got to be a little more delicate. Okay, cool. And I'll try to get, rub off those bits that fell on the disc. Cool. He goes off to the side. Let's keep working. I'm happy. I'm surprised. This is definitely an experiment worth doing, but I figured I would screw something up. somewhere along the lines, something would go wrong. But so far, so good. I'm noticing when I daub in to the skull, I get some really cool detail on the skull. I might come back and do that again on the heads and let them be a little darker, let them have a little bit more stuff in there so that just so I get that extra detail. Like I'm okay with them having some extra black and stuff like that so that we get that extra coolness of the head. In fact, let me just do that. And then nope. That's kind of cool. Yeah. So I just pushed the brush into the skull, and it just pushed some black into the eye sockets and such. I'm going to keep doing that. I'm going to go back to the others. I'm going to try to keep them kind of down so that that sinks in properly. I just push in the bristles and then daub it off to the sides. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, cool. Just push those bristles into the head, and it just gives it that extra bit of detail that the head needs. Nope, I pulled it off. Pulled it out. Trying to get around it, not in it. Okay, yeah, that's gonna have to be a darker head. Alrighty, and then that one as well. I may not have much paint left on the brush, so this is kind of, yeah, okay. All right. Continuing. Ending up looking nice and creepy. Definitely what I want out of animated skeletons. Good thing to learn. And you can see here, it would just be spotty if we stopped here. But we come back in, dab and daub at the various spots, especially looking for places where there's large amounts of black, and that should come right off. There we go. And I think there's actually, yeah. Just gonna let that be right what it is. Next verse, same as the first. Trying to get this black in everywhere. And obviously I'll need to move to another paper towel here in a moment, because that one's getting fairly full, fairly saturated in all of the spots where I can hold on to it. The other thing about this is, I say to wait a moment. This paint is so wet, it has not dried at all in the last, 3 seconds. But there is a little bit of sticking that happens, I find. So it does help to wait a moment or two just to get it going. Otherwise, you do pull off pretty much every bit of the detail, every bit of that black paint. Yeah, these are definitely going to look much more like nasty skeletons than just little white figurines with this touch. And again, this is one of those things where this is why you try stuff, because you find out, oh yeah, that worked. Didn't know if it worked, didn't know if it would, but it did. I think this will be our last use of that paper towel. I almost wish I could just reach in and kind of vacuum off some of the darker places where the paint has pooled. That's really all I want to do. I want to keep most of the paint there, but just get the large spots cleaned up. Okay, and then again I want to push some paint into the head and then daub it away from the sides. Cool. All right. Goes there. Again, this goes away. Pull out one more fresh towel. We have like, I think, yeah, 4 more skeletons to do. And then that will be it for us for tonight. Here's our sad, armless skeleton, Larry. Give him some nice work there. Actually kind of like him all dark and messy. So I'm going to be fairly conservative here with what I pull off. Yeah. So he's seen better days. That's cool. I might come back and add some some blood spatters to, because he feels like he should look like he's been through a lot. He's been down here for who knows how many decades, moldering away. And these adventures come along, and he gets animated. He has nothing left. Doesn't even have arms. But he still comes after him. Someone deserves a medal, if you ask me. I mean, really. All right. Again, give it a moment to rest. Whoa! Sorry, that was just me knocking over the brushes. Oh, sure enough, I had them all facing one way in the container, so they all were kind of leaning. Okay, we'll daub this off. Okay, yeah, that's cool. Alright. Yeah, I'm just going to leave it like that. Fairly gray. 2 more. And we will have our skeleton army complete. Not that I couldn't use more skeletons, but there does come a bit of a point where you feel a little crazy. It's like, you know, do I really want dozens and dozens of skeletons? You know, am I ever really going to have that kind of a battle? Maybe I will. It actually sounds pretty awesome. Maybe I'll do that. Who knows? But then also you have to keep them. Like, you have to store them someplace. You know, how often are you going to have those sorts of battles to where it's worth keeping? 50 skeleton minis along with everything else. I'll be honest, I'm basically just using the edges of the towel to get in those little spots and get some of that stuff away, leaving the rest. All right, good. I'm happy with that. One final skeleton, and we'll be good. As you can see, there's a lot of this black left over. So I definitely overdid it on that. Which might be something worth thinking about. Seeing if I could reuse this somewhere else. Oops, spattered a bunch on the base. My mistake. I'm gonna let this sit for a minute actually. I'm gonna let this be a little darker and deeper than the average. Could I do the same with a Amaryllis? Would she benefit from some... Let me just try this. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's nice. That definitely adds some detail to her. Let's just do this on her front here, and then more or less immediately pull it off. Yeah. I don't know how well you can see, but that added some dimension to her. Just added kind of some lines around the suit. That's cool. Glad I did that. I'll probably do that on the back as well. And I'll come back to that skeleton in a moment. Yep. Some of it came through to the front. But yeah, that's cool. That gave it some definition in the back and in the front. Oops. Yeah. Again, worth trying out, worth doing, okay? I'll come back to the skeleton. Again, I kind of liked the idea of it being more defined. You leave this in for too long, it kind of tends to make it all gray, which might be what you want. Okay, yeah, it didn't really do much. Okay. He's still he's more of a uniform gray with some splotches than your average mini. In fact, I might pull off a little bit of that stuff around its throat. Okay, cool. And let's give him the detail on the head, which seemed to work fine on the other ones. Like they already had some black there, but needs a little more effort. Just try that again, check on the other ones. They could use it a bit more. Okay, good. Just gonna keep that guy down. So I make sure that that black sinks in. Same thing there. Clean him up a bit. But, yeah, did up too much. Okay. Is that, oh no, you know what happens? Now, see, unfortunately, it just sinks into the skull. That black that I pushed in there, because it's so wet, it just sunk into the skull. So this is the first one I painted. As you can see, in fact, in general, the black is just kind of faded to a gray, which is fine. It actually just looks good. I'm not complaining. Here's another one. So it ends up just more of a gray than a black on that. But they look, like I said, they look a little bit more detailed, a little bit more realistic than just that straight white color. Oh well. No, that's good to know. That's fine. Like they look more like skeletons, so I'm happy. All right, that does it for us for tonight. Thank you all very much for following along. Yeah, until next time, make something.